thing. Hi, I'm Joni de Winter.
And I am Susan Grant.
And we are Bell Street.
Who are an events band and production company.
And we're here to talk to you today about our fun and failures.
On our journey from being scared to just doing it anyway.
Why's the ring light gone out?
Woo-hoo-hoo!
It's like being on the stage. Fine, I'm here.
Wow.
Okay. And there was light.
There really was. We've got to look this way more, into the light.
Into the light.
Into the light.
Well, welcome to episode 3 of... What's our podcast called? Not Just BS.
Yes, welcome. We don't know what to do with our hands
I know.
today.
Do we need some mugs? I've got a pug mug today.
Pug mug. And I've got a branded mug.
Excellent.
Lovely. A pug mug.
There is a mug thief in my house. We don't know where all the mugs are, so I couldn't go branded. Only one of us could be branded today, so...
But the topic today is not about mugs.
Unless the mugs are us.
Yes, well. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we thought we could talk a bit about expectations.
Yes. Not great expectations. Well, sometimes it is great.
Sometimes great expectations. But expectations we put on ourselves, expectations other people put on you, and expectations maybe we put on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to therapy. Let's do it. So this came up because if you've been listening along, hello if you're a new listener, you're going to be quite lost. So, no, you're
It
not.
is riveting though.
Yes,
honestly.
stay. If you've been following along, you know that we, in episode 1, we were about to launch our new cabaret, Glitter, Guilt and Good Intentions, and we were doing some previews for the show. We were doing a kind of an invite-only preview for a local charity, and we were doing a proper show at Chichester Fringe.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time we've done this cabaret, and there's been, although it's not a completely new show in terms of we haven't written a whole storyline, it's not like Hugh the Musical, it is lots of parodies. Obviously there's a theme, there's a story arc, and it's a cabaret, so we need to be able to interact with the audience and obviously remember all the lyrics
Well,
and the dance moves.
yes.
So there were nerves, weren't there?
Mm.
And one of the things we both realised about ourselves
I wonder where this is going.
is there were some people that we would have liked to have been there. But the problem is now we've done so many projects and things that kind of push ourselves out of our comfort zone. I think people think that we are not nervous about things anymore. And that it's just kind of a stroll on a park. And so we were talking about, I think those people thought that we weren't nervous.
Yeah.
And weren't cacking ourselves, basically.
Yeah. And maybe get to a point where actually people need to be asked to go to say, I really need your opinion.
Yeah.
And I'd really like you to be there for support. But you don't want to ask sometimes because you don't want people to feel put upon.
No.
And also, you assume that actually they should turn up. Sometimes. Depends who it is. But yes, we had 2 very different shows. And just going to the sort of expectation theme, I was just thinking, last year at Shaftesbury Fringe, we did our musical, but we also put together this cabaret that was just us having a sing, really, and it was hilarious. We put it together within about 3 weeks or something, and it was easy and it was fun and funny, and so I wonder whether we went into this project, certainly had that essence, but whether we sort of thought it was going to be that, but we knew it would be different. So when it didn't feel like that in rehearsal and the build-up, we panicked.
Yes.
Because it had to change. It couldn't be what it was, because that was quite literally thrown together. And
yes.
Brilliant.
And we do pride ourselves on being able to kind of perform through something that is thrown together, but we don't like to just throw something together and, you know, not know what we're doing, do we? No. Yeah.
So when we couldn't, and actually this project has been many different things before we actually did it. So although there were no tears and no crying on the floor, there was an element of what?
Yeah.
And so going into Wednesday evening's performance, again, we hadn't really told many people anything about it, so I think people didn't really know what to expect. And it was great, but we were still in a panic mode. But it's why we did it as well, so that we could throw it out there and just do it in front of an audience. Everyone laughed. No one left during the performance.
It would have been awkward for them to leave. It was a very brightly lit room. It's kind of like, it would definitely wasn't, you would feel obliged to stay. That's quite a good trick, actually, just putting that out there. Just brightly light a room and then no one feels like they can leave anyway. Yes, and I think that I wasn't expecting to feel so nervous about it either. So I was expecting to have, again, like, yeah, you make a good point, like at the Fringe, that kind of, let's just go kind of feeling, but I didn't have that. I think because it matters. And it mattered to us to get it, that we were getting it right, and it mattered to us that people enjoyed it and that we did it well. Yeah. But I do think people who know us think that we don't feel like that anymore. But, you know, we really do. So come next time.
Yes. Yes. We're expecting you.
But yeah, the expectation of an audience is quite an interesting thing to talk about when you're putting out something creative. And one of the reasons we've put Hugh to bed is because Hugh the Musical was an interactive musical we've talked a lot about in other podcasts you can listen to, for all your new listeners. And one of the reasons we put that project to bed is because we could see the confusion on audiences' faces. Then it turned into hilarity and, you know, fun, and they got into it. But that confusion was there for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and the show was only an hour. So the aim of the game with this was to set people's expectations up to be ready to get what they're expecting, or at least lull them into a sense of security that they're going to be getting what they're expecting, and then flip it. That's fine.
Yeah. Because a piece of advice we were given as well that we really try and think about is that you, at no point do you want to insult your audience or make your audience feel stupid or make your audience feel not part of it.
Because we changed the introduction of it, didn't we?
Yeah.
After talking to, well, it's on a podcast, isn't it? That advice. It's on an interview with Jason Ward.
Yeah.
And he talks about, can't remember the book, but it's about one of Sondheim's musicals not working.
Yeah. Because
the first 10 minutes was kind of, it was about show business, and so the first 10 minutes they were insulting the audience basically, and all the performers like ha ha ha, but the audience were like, all right, we won't watch the show then. And they didn't like it.
Yes, so getting on board with the audience straight away, especially if you're doing something that is in any way interactive, whether you're gigging, if you're talking, it's a little bit different if you're doing a show where you're just playing to them, but still in that case, we were discussing the other day about if you don't quite get your staging right, or you're not aware of yourself, you can leave the audience behind and you can leave them out, and it becomes just something that you're just doing on a stage.
Yeah.
And the audience can't, they're not involved, so they'll just wander off. Yeah, it's a real art to actually be able to look at something and be brave enough to pick it apart and see what they would be seeing as well.
Yeah. So initially our joke at the introduction of this cabaret was teasing the audience about why they were there. But actually what we've decided to do is turn that in on ourselves and tease each other and get the audience on board with us about how silly we are about it. Which instantly, and we did take that bit of advice, didn't we, and remembered it, and that's why we changed it. And I do think it was the right thing to do. And the other bit of advice that we took, definitely, that we've put into play with this, is from Brian E. Purgey's interview podcast. Go back, listen to that one as well. She said about always complimenting when you're being an MC or you're moving around in between the audience, talking, making chit chat. Some people can get away with kind of roasting an audience member or teasing them, but actually it's far more effective to get them on side, to compliment them, to make them feel comfortable, even just in that one-on-one situation. Don't flirt with the woman's husband.
No.
Tell the woman something great, or, you know, and that was a good bit of advice that we definitely, because we haven't got a lot of experience in that kind of cabaret yet. It's creeping up. It was great advice.
Well, it's a real talent to be able to talk to the audience like that, and to be an MC, to be able to hold that space. And we really enjoy, I think we both enjoy developing that side. Yeah. But by no means are we comfortable there yet.
Not yet. No. But it's a good skill that we're both enjoying learning. So yeah, the audience expectation is an important thing to us now, because that ultimately means whether people buy tickets. You know, when you have a really relevant, relatable subject, people think, right, I know what that's going to be, sort of. I can get on board with that. And so hopefully they buy a ticket in advance. So with this cabaret, we've tried, while still keeping an air of ambiguity, to give the audience some kind of expectation of what they're going to get.
And when, and because we're running sort of 2 shows at the moment with the Rat Pack girls, the expectation is more obvious because it does what it says.
Yes.
It is to do, it's not a tribute, but it is to do with the Rat Pack. It's Rat Pack songs from the era, and we are gals.
We are gals.
So that's that. And we had people that came to the launch of that and have gone straight off and bought tickets to the theatre show, which is in October, which is exciting.
It is exciting. Can't wait for that. But also, with our brand, I think, comes a certain amount of expectation, because we have managed to cultivate audiences who know us, have a certain expectation of whatever it says on the poster is actually going to be a little bit twisted around. And people sometimes are disappointed if there's no crowd interaction, because we've kind of, people expect that from us now. And so we unknowingly have created this brand where people do expect certain things. One of them might be petticoats.
But with that as well, some of the feedback that from people who have come along to either the musical or actually the cabaret last week, is some people who've seen us just gigging around, have said, it's a good show, but actually we much prefer you just in the singing, gigging vibe.
One person.
Oh, we had it in Hugh though.
We did have it in Hugh, yeah.
People were very cross because they thought they were coming to see us gig.
We did have that.
And we did this ridiculous musical.
Which proves that people don't really read posters.
Yeah, they were not happy.
No, they weren't. Because you're not getting a Bell Street gig if you're coming to a Bell Street theatre production. But also, I think our theatre stuff is a slightly different audience, because the kind of gigs we get booked for when we're doing events and parties and things, we're kind of appealing maybe to like 50 plus. We didn't do that on purpose, but that's just, you know, that's fine. We like that. But because they like to go to bed early.
So do we.
Yeah, exactly. But our theatre stuff actually is, we try and write about our stuff, and we're not 50 yet. So that kind of, we slightly want to reach a slightly younger audience, as well as that existing audience. And it's quite interesting that I don't think our gig audience would be as on board with what we do in the cabaret, for example. I know I'm generalising, but I just think there is a difference in, I think we're appealing to a slightly younger crowd with our theatre. Well, we had a teenager there at the preview, didn't we? And she thought we were hilarious. So that was good. There's a lot of expectation on each other though, isn't there? Well, we worked it out actually. We've been saying for ages, how long have we been singing together? And it came up this month. It's 7 years. 7 years since our first
7 years this
Bell
month.
Street.
Yeah.
7 years, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
It was up on the memories on the good old Facebook.
And that first gig,
Talk about expectations.
goodness me. I don't know what anyone there was expecting. I don't know what we were expecting. I don't even know why we put ourselves out there.
No one got what we were expecting. What they were expecting, I don't think.
Well, no, I don't think, because actually we were good. We were very good. We were very wooden.
We were. You watched the videos and all three of us are very nervous.
Yeah.
But it was in a very intense environment, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
There was a lot going on dynamics-wise.
Yes.
In a very brightly lit room. We obviously like that as a first.
Yeah, and when we say we expect people to come along, I mean, we had all the people that we would like to be there or we wanted support from, but
Yeah, not anymore.
no. But it was a very weird mix of people.
It was.
Yes, it brings, but actually it makes me feel very uncomfortable thinking about it. It was nerves beyond nerves. But you have to do that to get to the next step.
Yeah.
But yes, the expectation.
Yes, so 7 years ago. So we have been performing together for 7 years. And the expectation between us has changed but become more not predictable, but there is this kind of unwritten agreement of what we expect. And one thing I would say that we do very well is, because we've been performing together so long now, is we can catch each other. We say this a lot, but we can catch each other in terms of lyrics, physically. And if we forget something, I went off on Saturday, I went off on a link that was not time for that link. Susan's like, come back. We're not there yet. Or like that time in Rat Pack where you told me my trousers were undone. You know, meeting my expectations there.
Yes. Well, that was tricky because I was trying to do it discreetly.
Dog's deep throating a bone. Ellie.
No, she's on the sofa. She's there.
Oh, well,
She's just being sick.
She's
not.
sick?
She's just making noises.
Don't be sick.
No, she's just got a hairball or something.
Yeah, I just want attention. Okay, sorry.
Yes. How to tell you that your trousers were undone discreetly in front of everybody.
Yes. I don't know how you do that, really. I think in the end you just told me, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, did the back up, all sorted.
Yes. No one was expecting that.
No.
But no, what you expect from the people you're working with is, and we kind of almost don't have to lay that out anymore. Probably wouldn't have had the confidence to lay it out when we first were performing together, would we? But now there's kind of an unspoken expectation, but you will tell me, expectation that you will tell me if my trousers are undone or if I've just skipped 3 songs.
Yes.
But what about working with other people? Should you have certain expectations, do you think? How do you think expectations affect your working relationship with other people?
Well, you sort of, I think, learning as you go is one of the things you have to do. Is you do your research about working with other people, and we've learned that we trust our gut with who we work with.
Yeah,
because actually there's nothing worse than being let down with expectations, never mind about personally, but when you start anything with somebody, you do have an expectation that that person is going to be working with you or showing up with you, for you. And we have that, going back to what you were saying about each other, we do have that together, which a lot of musicians don't. If you're going out as a solo artist, we always say we don't know if, well, we don't want to do it, but that's a lot, your expectation you're having to carry yourself the whole time. So we do have an expectation to show up together and try and divide what we need.
Divide the stress.
But yeah, in any job or anything, when you're working with other people, you do expect something from them. And you hope that they're not going to let you down. And if you're paying someone, you really hope that they're not going to let you down. But again, that's where it's really important to trust who you're going to work with.
Luckily, we have we agree, our guts agree on when we're talking about, do we want to involve this, or do we want to get someone in, or do we want to pay someone? When we talk about who we might want to do those things, we often are on exactly the same page. Yeah. People can actually know. I was going to say people can surprise you, but
They can. We have been surprised. I'm trying to think of who.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. People can surprise you, and then I thought, can they?
They have.
People can exceed your expectations.
Yeah.
Do you think creatives find it harder to communicate what their expectations are from people, from venues, we haven't talked about venues, from their colleagues? Because sometimes it's hard, people find it harder to approach a creative thing as a business.
Maybe.
Because sometimes you're just grateful that someone is giving you exposure or a chance, or, maybe it's a bit of networking.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is hard to, I think I would feel quite uncomfortable laying out an expectation.
Well, it's about boundaries as well, isn't it? Because we've had quite a lot of discussion recently about whether musicians should perform for free, and that's a whole different topic. But we've been asked to do things before, and we've put our quote in, whether it's a charity quote or whether it's whatever, and people are surprised that we wouldn't do the gig for free.
But we made an agreement that we're not in a financial position to work for free at the minute. And that's what someone's asking you to do. Now, whether that's wrong or right is a whole other debate. But if someone's asking you, say, to do a charity gig for a gig for exposure or a gig for charity and not for a fee, then they're asking you to work for free.
Yeah.
And the way we phrase it now is we can't afford to work for free at the minute. And maybe one day we can. Yeah. Maybe one day we can throw away our time and skills. But at the minute we agreed between ourselves our minimum cost that we will go out for. And as we talked to in episode 1, the minimum amount of faff we're going to go out for, is it going to negatively affect the rest of the thing? So and that's been a really helpful decision for us. And sometimes it feels weird to say no, or just be honest about your price and then leave it there. It's very much up to a venue or an organisation to say yes or no. You can only put the ball in their court. But it's something I'm really glad we had that discussion about, because we agreed it. So if I go back on that agreement, I'm letting Susan down. If Susan goes back on it, she's letting me down.
Yeah. So
it's good. But expectations from venues is quite an interesting one, because as an artist, there are certain things you expect from a venue, or maybe an artist from a venue, or from a gallery, from a, what else is there?
Well, an event of anyone who is putting on an event, you would think that everything had been thought about, and we have put on events as well, so we can come at it from that side. So our expectations are to have all the information that we need.
Yes.
And to know exactly what we're turning up to. and what the theme is. Then we can decide what we're going to wear so we fit in. It was their power, And actually, we've spoken to other musicians.
Basic expectation, but you'd be surprised.
Other musicians we know who have given us their horror stories of turning up, and it was a completely different themed evening to what they thought.
Yes, yeah.
But yes, so not all venues want to give you that information,
or have thought about it. Because it's down to assumption, isn't it? We've made a lot of mistakes where we've assumed things.
Yes,
we've assumed that venues will be providing whatever or running on time, and know that we are running to a schedule as well. If they're running an hour and a half late, we can't be running an hour and a half late. But you would expect people understand that. But people aren't, if not often, people who are running events haven't been on this side of it, so their thought processes just isn't the same. So it's fair to your venue or your gallery or your theatre to lay out what your expectations are. Theatres, I think, probably are the best at laying out where you have to give out expectations, because you need to know, do you need tech, what space do you need, are you selling merch? All of those questions are quite standard. Then music venues and the like are probably the one where there's most not discrepancy, what's the word, where things vary, most variable. We have made mistakes, and so slowly we're learning to be more and more specific about exactly what time we have to set up, exactly what people are expecting from us, exactly how long is this auction, and we're clear about how far over our time we can go, because a lot of bands will commit to a time, and if that event runs over, that's not their problem. They'll play until the allotted time they were booked for, and that's fair, and that's actually in our contract.
But it does depend as well who is in charge, because if you've got quite a big event and it's one person doing everything, that's really hard. And again, we've had that with theatres and as well as outdoor events. And if someone's not delegating, that's a lot to organise yourself. And that's where things fall, I think. When you actually have one person who deals with the artists, or one person who's booking or doing the promotion, that's their job. And you've got direct contact, you can get in touch with them. And then as an artist, you feel safe. It is nice to feel comfortable. You know where you're going, you've got all the right stuff, and you can get in, you've got the right address.
There are a few venues that say they support musicians that actually kind of have thought it through from a musician's perspective. So it's interesting. Also, does the venue expect you to sell tickets? Or is there an expectation that you are coming and they are the ones responsible for promoting? Obviously, in an ideal world, everyone does this, but we do really want to have almost like a live podcast one day with venues, musicians, maybe an agent and some creatives, and have this debate about musicians playing for free, who's promoting the gig, who's making money, how are you making money, and all those, and have an open conversation. But the fact is, it blows our mind even to have 4 people on a podcast.
One day.
Yeah.
One day. All these things are one day.
Yeah.
And we have our studio and the podcast stuff set up at all times.
Yes. And there's the expectations you have for yourself as well. We're all our own harshest critic, and I think sometimes we can expect too much from ourselves. Set to not higher goals, but this is where comparison comes into things again, in terms of not comparing yourself too much to other creatives, because your journey is your journey, but what are you expecting from yourself? And that's where goal setting is a good idea, because it's about thinking about what you want to achieve, how you're going to move your project or your business forward, and focusing in on that journey, being inspired by other people around you, absolutely. But I think there is this slight kind of comparative feel with creatives, where it could be easily that you slip into, well, they're doing that, they've got this, look at everything they're doing there, look at how great their promotion is, you know. So setting out your expectations for yourself, when I start to spiral with that, I definitely find it helpful to go back and think, right, what are we wanting to achieve? We're always asking ourselves now, aren't we, what are the next few steps to get over here? And sometimes it just feels so painfully slow. Painfully slow, especially when, well, this is our first time with a lot of projects. It's our first time being a bit braver, so every time it's a little stretch further and a little step of faith further. What about you? What do you feel about the expectations you put on yourself?
Yeah, they can be, it can be tricky when you load yourself up with too much expectation, because quite often we aren't in a position to meet it when you pressure yourself so much. And that's in life generally, I think, as well. We're expected to be so many different things. And then when you can't, for that moment, in that time, it can be a real letdown with yourself. So it is taking the pressure off, and like you say, going back and looking at what you have done, which is when we've talked about journaling as well. That's where that really comes in, because you can go back and go, actually, I did achieve this and I did manage to do this. So why am I expecting this here? But it is also really good to have a bit of expectation, so that you do keep pushing. But I always think with us, because again, we spiral with different things differently, which is good as well.
We're just a crazy tornado going in different directions.
But what I always think, we're not actually, yes, we gig and we have some brilliant functions, but what we are is a production company. What we're doing is putting shows together. So we're not like a lot of other artists who are just going out to have a sing, and that's their job. We are writing shows constantly. So I have to go back to that and go, yes, this is, our brains are so split between the creative show writers and the gigging singers,
because one's definitely easier to quantify financially, which fits under your other expectations of when you're trying to make something a career. You kind of want to see the evidence of money, and so, but it's easier to quantify gig money, isn't it, than to quantify bigger projects that will take slower and have slower momentum, but possibly an equal or maybe a slightly better reward than chipping away at those gigs. Or depends how things go, doesn't it? But that it is an interesting way of looking at evidence of
But also with, again, coming from a performance side, but it also in life, when you go for a job, you are expecting something from that, whether you're expecting to get it or you're expecting the experience or expecting not to get it. It's the same when you're auditioning. It's the same when you're putting yourself out for something. It's the same when we approach a venue and then we hear nothing. It's all, you're always charged emotionally with hopefully a positive thing that's going to come from it. And so when you don't get that audition, or you don't get to play at what you wanted to, it hurts. And so it can't be a knock. you're allowed to wallow for a bit. And then you have to shake it off.
Yeah. Have a good sulk.
Yes, a good sulk and a good moan, and then try again, or find something else.
We did something this week, didn't we? We
What did we do?
well, apart from a whole new show, we ordered our first bit of merch.
We did.
So stay tuned for that, because that's I'm just gonna, because we've been talking about merch for quite a while, and you could buy everything branded, like you can get everything.
Yes.
So but there's always the layout, isn't there? So we have decided to dip our toe in to the merch situation. So watch this space.
Yeah. Yes, that will be fun when that arrives, and then you'll all be racing out to buy some.
Of course.
We know that. It's not. It hasn't got our faces on it. It's fine.
No, I don't think anything should have our faces. And we did have a very exciting meeting last night about a project for 2026.
Yes.
That is a collaborative project, and
there is a lot of expectation with that.
There is. And this is one of these projects that we were talking about in episode 1, where we must not get distracted and carried away, because it will be so fun to plan.
Yes.
I'm looking at our big post-it note. There's some fun projects on there, but
yes, piecing that together will be entertaining, and the people that we are working with are all brilliant. But from working with them before, when they weren't sure whether they wanted to be involved and wanted to be on the stage so much, they're all raring to go now, aren't they?
Mostly, 95%. Yeah.
So we're very excited about that.
We are excited. There's lots to be excited about. I am excited about this year. I think I'm pleased that we spent the first half of this year, because half the year's gone now. The first half of this year doing what we've done, and it was felt like we were holding our nerve at some points, because we were really investing our time and stuff into it, but I really believe it's going to pay off. And it's exciting. Say what you just said to me.
I said don't expect too much from anybody, but that's a negative point.
Well, we can unpick that if you want. Anything you'd like to share with the group? Well, it is hard to positively expect things from people if you've been let down.
Yeah, but I think there's expectation, and then we were talking earlier about assuming, that sort of assumption.
And you don't want to assume, because it makes an ass out of you and me.
Yes, indeed. So that I think there is a difference. There's a different energy between assuming, and expecting. And expecting feels a lot.
It feels like hope,
lighter, yes, and stronger. Because if you expect something from somebody, you're hoping that they're going to be on board with you, or that they're going to be showing up with you. Yeah, I think
it's like a form of manifesting, maybe. So you can expect things to go well. You can expect creativity to flow. I was expecting to win 25 grand last night.
Were you?
Yeah, I entered a draw and I was convinced I was going to win it. And I was fully expecting that. But it's okay that I didn't. You see, it hasn't dashed my hopes, but it made my Wednesday afternoon a little more fun.
Yes.
We dreamed, didn't we? And I was like, I'm going to take us to New York. We're going to go see Death Becomes Her, and we'll just tell everyone we won a competition. It'll be fine. Then we'll buy a studio and blah blah blah, and a car that works between us. But yes, but expectation has a sense of hope, doesn't it?
It does.
And I think it can be a great way of setting boundaries, but also it's a great way of opening up good things coming to you.
Yes.
Like they say about changing your narrative, about that sometimes you're saying things that aren't really true, like saying money comes to me easily, gigs come to us easily, audiences love us.
Yes.
You know, you can say things like that, but eventually, if you say it enough, it does become true. And so, yeah, it's a kind of a more hopeful way to be without being like pie in the sky. Expecting good things for yourself, expecting things to go well is a great mindset to have, as long as if it doesn't knock you down too much.
Yeah, so that you can get up and enter another competition
for 25 grand. Or maybe I'll enter a 50 grand one.
God, imagine what we could do with that.
Imagine. I'm a bit obsessed with Death Becomes Her at the minute.
Okay.
It's the costumes, it's the songs.
We'll find a way. Find a way to get there.
Yes, we'll expect a way to appear.
So,
yes,
keep expecting, keep putting yourself out there, whatever, whether you're in a creative environment, whether you're just trying to get the washing up done, whatever job you're in, just keep expecting all the good things to be coming your way.